welcome to Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association Reasonable Doubt. I'm here with fellow host Justin Harris. Hello.
Hi.
And
the room is heavy tonight.
It is heavy, and a very special guest running for one of the biggest seats in Harris County.
Not running for, has
the biggest seat in Harris County, correct? Miss Ogg, the District Attorney of Harris County. How are you?
I'm just great. Thank you for having me.
So tell me.
Back again.
Back
Yes.
again. Thank you. Opening yourself up to the public. How are you feeling today?
Well, let me say, I feel great, and my life is wide open. Our office is not just run with transparency. When you hold an elected position, people know you even if you don't know them. And so it's important to remember that we're all human, and that's what we were talking about before. So I'm well because my family is well, and I'm glad about that.
How does one balance? We talked about it, not only the top law enforcement official in Harris County, but also one of the biggest influencers. You have the most impact over what some would say lives of people that live in this county, of policy. Is there really, are you even real? I mean, do you even exist? Are you a human?
Yes, and even though you're not supposed to have feelings in politics and there's no crying in baseball, of course I'm human. And I have a son and a partner, and I feel responsible for just about everyone in Harris County's public safety and fairness and due process rights. So it's a great job, and it's entirely public.
How is this job different from the last? Because you've held some pretty big positions in the county, in the city. How is this different as in your eyes?
So I've been the anti-gang czar, and I worked at Crime Stoppers, and I've been a public figure, but I'd never been an elected person. My dad was an elected person, but it's pretty difficult. It's different being the person than being the family. And the neat thing about it, and the reason that I wanted to do it, is because I can affect people's lives with policy, in effect the stroke of a pen, and we've always had to slug it out in court. So as lawyers, we're used to making change a case at a time. As an elected person in the district attorney's position, I can make big changes that affect thousands of people, even millions, like drug policy, like when we reformed marijuana, and then crack cocaine and the way we handled it. And the combination of those two things has led to a huge number of people being diverted around our system or through our system and coming out without a criminal record that they can't erase. Not everybody gets PTI or pretrial intervention. Some people get deferred, and you have to non-disclose it. But essentially, we're doing a lot less harm to drug addiction type offenses and those people who suffer from them.
You do have a number of programs that I think have been successful. What have been some of the programs that you're proud of over the last years, and have you identified any issues that you think you can overcome regarding the implementation or execution of those programs?
Sure. Drug policy change is the biggest because it affects the most people. And the way Americans feel, even Texans, feel about drugs and being punitive about them, and that being the way we try to change people's behavior, I think people have scrapped that idea. I think the war on drugs was a failure. I think it was a monumental problem for people of color, and that it trapped a lot of people in a cycle of poverty and less employment or non-employment. So I really like keeping people in the workplace, and anybody that we can divert back into eligibility for good jobs or not make their lives harder in terms of opportunity for better jobs, I think that's good crime prevention. Mental health. I thought for years we handled mental health in a draconian way, and we worked really hard over the last 2 years to create a mental health diversion pathway, and we got one. So those programs are super successful. and things I'm really proud of because they corrected longstanding problems. We have a clean and green program where if people illegally dump or if they've got other minor offenses that we want PTI from them, we put them to community service. They go clean the bio for 6 or 12 hours. It's not much, but they learn about the environment, how long it takes plastic to disintegrate. And I think that's just good public policy. People are actually being held accountable, but they don't leave worse than they were when they got there. Conversely, violent offenders, we have a major problem with. Firearm violence, mass shootings, oh my gosh, gangs, domestic violence. So I've been trying to clear our table because we have enough serious crime in Houston that I need all the lawyers' attention on trying to keep people safe. Because public safety is what people expect. They expect me to treat people fairly, with due process, and they want to be safe.
Can I kind of ask a little bit of a different question? You've been in the office now for about 3 years. What were some of the biggest surprises that you met with, and some of the biggest obstacles that you had, and maybe even some of the best? You talked about your preferred programs and things you're proud of, but some of the things that you maybe we wouldn't know about that you were proud of or that you were happy that made you feel satisfied in this.
So I really was shocked at the complexity of the legal issues that have been presented to me in cases that the local defense bar have raised in different trials, the complexity of post-conviction writs, drawing on mistakes of the past, and people who've, claimed that they were innocent, actually being innocent. These are big surprises. Not that our system would make mistakes, but that our system has made more mistakes than people ever owned up to. And so I think those are the biggest surprises, the justice that really needs to be done and how far we claw it back, and how difficult the situations are. The most unpleasant thing about the job is the pressure that I face from different interest groups. And they're generally on the extreme side. They're either on the far left with this kind of socialist section of the party of Democrats, and on the right it's the police union, and the far right, the Tea Partiers, and that want to lock everybody up. And so on nearly every case or major issue that comes forward, I receive less than veiled threats that we're going to hold a protest, we're going to get you a bad article in the paper, we're going to hold a press conference. So what gets you through that, and I didn't know, there's no book that comes with being an elected person, especially the DA. What I've relied on is the evidence, and it's just the most comforting thing. We either have the evidence or we don't, period. And that is the way I think we should be practicing. So I really stress that evidence-based approach with our prosecutors.
How do you stress that?
Through training.
Okay.
Through training and messaging and trying to show it in my actions, that the decisions I make are not driven by political forces that are trying to pressure me or pull me or cajole me through our relationships or through politics to go one way or the other. So I really look at the evidence as kind of a holy thing.
Well, you've been known for standing your ground in regards to criticism from the press and from the media, but also from some law enforcement agencies.
Right.
They have criticized you regarding some decisions that are made, and you stand by them. Like, for example, today, we won't get into it, but I thought it was very good of you in the press conference to say at least the evidence, at least at this point, shows manslaughter for this shooting that occurred in Bel Air. And you stood by that. And it's not that, there very well may be some pushback from that, but you have consistently stood your ground and backed the decision makers that you have trusted when you came into office to make those decisions, to advise you and to counsel you. Let's talk about that. When you came into office, you brought in a lot of good lawyers, heavy hitters, that a lot of them are from the defense side, right?
Yes.
How has that worked for you, and where do you see it going? And for the future, you're going to need some new leaders because there has been some positions that have opened up. And where do you see drawing from that?
He's also asking, when can we have Joanne music back?
I'm just asking. I mean,
Listen, I've got David Mitchum, I've got Vivian King, I've got Joanne Music, I've got some terrific people, Sean Tier, and I inherited some good ones. You know, I've got Kaylin Williford, I've got Samantha Connect and Major Offenders. I've got really good people that I respect. So let me just say, when I say we're evidence-based, decision making at our office is all my responsibility, but I don't like making decisions alone. I far prefer the collaboration of all those good people that I told you about, all their experience on both sides. Plus, they all started at the DA's office, which is pretty interesting. So we understand the culture, which is unique. I love collaborating with them. I love hearing their ideas. We try to encourage, you know, truth and honesty. Don't sugarcoat it. Give it to me straight. Tell me what you think. And that's how we reach decisions. And then I almost always agree with them. And when I don't, I'll tell them, we'll rehash it, because I really want to check myself against that body of minds. And that's how we get things done. So I see that going well. I see that as something that the DA's office used to do to some degree and is doing again. And where do I see it going? I got to recruit all the time. The DA's job traditionally is a young person's game. Folks come in, they've got big law school debts. We pay much lower than a lot of people in the private sector, even now including the public defender's office. And so it's hard to compete. And I'm trying to sell people on changing the system from within, you know, signing up for some greater good, really trying to motivate people. But it's hard to compete without the money. Right. And so I fight at Commissioner's Court for my employees and for our salaries and for additional people, because I got to fight to compete. And I promise you, if I was a guy, I'd be bold, I'd be, you know, aggressive on behalf of my employees. And I will tell you, women still get treated differently in the press, right, by our peers in government. You know, there's a tendency to kind of get that little lady treatment. And these things need to change. We're a society that has serious problems. We need serious solutions.
Well, can I follow up with something you said? Before the show we were talking, and you mentioned that you were the managing partner of the largest public law firm in the state of Texas.
In effect.
Effectively, right. You have 800 employees, 350 of those are attorneys, which makes, my math is right, 450 support staff, effectively, administrative and support staff, right?
Yes, and investigators.
So here's a question, and I've been talking to some of the judges about this, because I'm doing some court-appointed work in some misdemeanor courts, and we have, the court-appointed attorneys in misdemeanor court have never gotten a pay raise one time. In both felony and misdemeanor court, we cannot bill on our vouchers for work that our support staff does in our office. So I've been talking to the judges, and I haven't gotten quite through to the commissioners yet about, is there any way to change the pay structure in Harris County Indigent Defense to allow us to get pay for at least our support staff, if not changing our pay rates, or both, allowing us to pay our support staff. Are you, if I understand?
I'm supportive. I'm supportive.
The county pays your office for support staff to prosecute our indigent clients.
Right.
I think it's only fair that we be able to get some compensation for the time that my staff puts on defending indigent staff.
I think that's fair, and that's reflective of the modern practice of law. The current schedule, I think, for Indigent Defense Counsel is under the average pay scale for lawyers almost anywhere. And so, full disclosure, my partner, Olivia Jordan, was a criminal defense lawyer doing appointments for about 29 years. She's not able to work now. But I lived off that. My salary as a prosecutor, hers as a defense lawyer, and then I went on to do other things. So you were underpaid. You are limited in many ways, and I think it affects the representation. I continue to advance the idea that if the folks who are running in the positions that fund our offices, if they are true believers in criminal justice reform, then they should pay for criminal justice reform, and they should pay for what it actually costs.
You're right, and you've said that multiple times. So, and you've been consistent with that, as well as what you said earlier about prioritizing resources that the office has and that law enforcement has.
I have to.
So, and that's been consistent from you the whole time. I'm very glad and appreciative to hear that you support that, and I might ask you sometime to mention that to some of the commissioners or county judge.
I would.
Because it's really difficult for us. And I think that you're right about the pay. And I'm not sitting here saying that rich lawyers need to be richer. I'm not wealthy by any means. I live in an apartment and I drive an 11-year-old Subaru. But we don't get paid nearly what a lot of people think, particularly in misdemeanor court. And not only does the representation affected by attorneys who don't do the same job because they're not getting paid what they would if they were hired, but it doesn't attract attorneys who I think would provide really excellent representation. We have that already, but we could get even better excellent representation if the pay was more inducive to the people who do this for money.
It's really simple. The marketplace is simple. To be competitive, we have to have competitive pay.
Right.
For defense and for prosecution.
And I will be honest, we're being above board here. When you came out asking for $100 million for $20 million for 100 new prosecutors, I said, I'll support that after we get more money for indigent defense. So sounds like we're getting support from you. And
I testified on behalf of the public defender at the time. I've been criticized, I didn't ask for more public defenders. Well, first of all, they don't work for me. My priority is our employees
Right.
and my job that I was elected to do. But it really makes sense. The court reporters recently brought an issue up in front of Commissioner's Court. They too are not being paid the right rate, and it appeared that the court's answer was electronic recording. And if you've practiced in federal court, while it's okay, it's certainly not the same as a court reporter's transcript. It's a lot more labor intensive for the lawyers. So this is no answer. This is just shoving the responsibility for paying out the window and instead pushing the responsibility to the defense bar and to the prosecution to make do with what is less than required for a real record. So I really want to push that those politicians on our Commissioner's Court who say they are for criminal justice reform, I really hope they would come down to the courthouse, into the courtrooms, and actually see what's happening, because I don't think that's happened.
And go into the holdovers. Like they need. I think it's important that they see. One thing that I would really like for County Judge Hidalgo to do is to come and see what it's like for an attorney to meet somebody for the first time through a quarter-inch thick piece of plexiglass with 30 other people behind them.
I encourage you to invite her. I have invited all the commissioners to the Mental Health Diversion Center in Midtown. Judge Hidalgo's been, but the others I'm not sure have. I don't know, I hope so. We've encouraged them to go down to the probable cause court, to come to intake, to see what we really face each day. We've talked to them about the body cam problem, which I really want to talk about. It delays the whole system.
Let's talk about the body cameras. So there have been 2 district attorneys today that told me that there's a memo out that says that the district attorneys cannot ask for body cameras until there's 6 months into the case, and at the 6-month mark, they will write, which one did on my reset today, escalate BWC. That's a big body-worn camera. That's a big problem if we're waiting 6 months for body cameras. In felony court today, I have a body camera issue. Both of us got reamed. I got reamed, the prosecutor got reamed. Because there's a body camera that goes to identity of a client of mine. And I was wondering, why is it 6 months? I've been asking for the body cameras and it's not here.
Well, let me tell you what I learned.
What's the deal?
So, first of all, about 5 years ago, even before I ran, I testified at City Council when HPD was about to buy their body camera system on a grant given to them by DA Anderson at the time. I just asked them to wait because I knew they were about to engage in the largest collection of evidence in the country. We were the biggest city at the time saying that we were going to adopt body cams, and I was concerned about the technology interface and what it would do really to the DA's office. I aspired to go there, but I wasn't running, I wasn't elected. So City Council voted for it anyway, and we got body cams at HPD that are not compatible in technology with our discovery portal. Obviously, we've had to go higher tech. It's 21st century. We got to push that discovery out to y'all electronically where possible. And the darn technology doesn't interface. The Sheriff's Department, after I was elected, bought their own system. Again, not compatible with HPD, not compatible with our portable. All these things take programmers time to write and fix when they can, and these systems can't be fixed. They also have storage problems. Right. So what we've seen is an increase in the time to disposition of cases. It's driven by many things. The courts are in charge and responsible for the dockets, and they have that, to me, that responsibility. But there's also been Harvey, where we were out of a courthouse for months with no relief. And there's this body cam issue that the commissioners, we talk about it every time I go before them. It increases the time for everything we do. It delays disposition because the technology's not interfaced. So I've been working with Acevedo, with Chief Acevedo, and with Sheriff's Department and other agencies trying to coordinate this evidence. But it really is like pulling teeth. They want to cooperate, but they have systems that their predecessors have invested in. They're locked in, and there's just not the monetary relief. Again, the commitment to make this thing work.
What's the missing link that can bring the district attorney's office and a lot of the surrounding agencies together? Is it
technology?
It's tech.
It's technology,
and
which is driven by
money.
Money.
And oh, well, so some of is this true or is it not true? District attorneys, they're working via like candlelight over the weekends.
They did because that's not okay.
I mean, come on. Tell me about it.
Well, we dropped the stone tablets and the chisels, so I don't know what they're complaining about. No, over the weekend, the landlord, there was a failure in the programming, that's all. So it was a one-time, I think it was a one-off. I only heard a whole lot of big complaints, but only once. So we fixed that with the landlord. Listen, we're lucky. We're in a building that's 2.5 miles from the courthouse. Our folks have to bus over from the parking garage to the building, bus back to the courthouse for docket.
I
come back to the building.
I agree with that.
It's very difficult and it's extraordinarily time consuming, and I feel for them.
Would you say
you have a whole crop of attorneys? I was talking to a couple last week and I was like, how long have you been with the office? And they said, oh, a year or 9 months. And I was like, you've never been to the 4th, 5th, and 6th floors.
Right.
Like, you've never
seen
just
our
gone
office.
down to like, oh, I need to run down to my office real quick.
Yeah.
And there was another prosecutor who was there before, and they're like, oh, they're like, wait, what is he talking about? And they're like, oh, it's so great. Like you could just run, you could be in your office and hear there's a big trial going on, and run up there and just watch part of it instead of hopping on a bus and taking a trip across.
Well,
It's changed the culture.
It has.
There's
a lot of wasted labor that is extremely valuable to an organization like mine. Our widget is time.
Right.
You know, we need that. That's what we have, and we have so many cases. You know, we have an ethical responsibility to handle every single one of them correctly. That's on us. So I cannot tell my prosecutors, well, just cut this corner or cut that, fake this, or fake that. I mean, our licensors are on the lines.
My clients' lives.
Their clients' lives are on the line. We get it. So all I'm asking for is more people so that we can push the cases through faster. You got to get the same quality of prosecution.
But the issue's not.
The question is how fast do you want to get it?
The technology issue sounds like it's not on y'all's side. It's that you have all these different agencies.
Yes.
And I've heard.
That's true.
I feel like this is a wives' tale, but that HPD has one person who processes all the body cams. If that's true, that sounds like an intentional underfunding to slow the process.
I can correct that.
Okay.
And I want you all to invite Chief Acevedo sometime to your show. I think you'd find him interesting and transparent. He's had a number of people. They keep assigning a bunch of people, they'll catch up, and then through probably need in other places, they're robbing Peter to pay Paul.
Right.
And so then you get back down to a few people, long waiting periods, backlog again. You know, they're doing what I'm doing. It's whack-a-mole. Until you got enough people, you just continue to be short someplace.
Is hiring more people, are more prosecutors the solution? Because it's interesting. You say prosecutions are down, filings are down, but you want more attorneys. Is it because you have to have 100 more because Goins messed up a whole lot of things? I'm kidding. I'm kidding. But in reality, this is what I'm saying. People are saying, you're saying filings are down, but why do you want more prosecutors?
Okay. Filings are down because of my policies on drugs, on mental health, and because we screen the heck out of the cases at intake. So filings are down by 18%, for example, in misdemeanor courts, up by 4% in felony courts since 2015. I want them to go up in felony courts because the more rapes, robberies, and murders we solve, we're necessarily going to have more cases. So you have a gap between crimes committed and reported and crimes solved and charged. And as we close that gap, I want to close that gap in felony cases because those are generally victim cases. In misdemeanor court, I want those filings to go down because those are the less violent, less offensive crimes, and I want to focus on DWI, organized crime, burglary of motor vehicles, and domestic violence. We want to get to the dangerous misdemeanors, and we want to try and work everybody else through the system. So I want those cases down, and they are. The difference is the time to disposition has increased the size of my lawyers' dockets tremendously.
Why do you suppose
unrealistically?
That is, though?
Well, the way the dockets are being handled.
I agree.
Harvey, the bail reform.
Can we keep blaming Harvey, though?
Yes, we've
Really?
never caught up from Harvey. My lawyers spend an hour and a half in transit every day.
Fair enough. Okay, no, fair
It's
enough.
only an
Fair
8-hour
enough,
day.
Fair enough. Fair
you know,
enough.
and
No,
we're not getting into that courthouse anytime soon.
I don't
Really?
know. It seemed like they turned
Really? Yeah.
around
Okay.
at
Hold
8,
on. Let's
9,
get
10,
the
11
insight on
for
it. We're not getting
Yeah,
anywhere.
so-
Yeah, what's
Well,
the
have you
insight?
guys have they started jamming the elevator shafts through yet?
No.
I'm getting
Okay.
jammed through an elevator.
No,
yes,
no.
yes. I'm
It's
getting
going to be
jammed up
really
every
ugly
day.
when they start building the new elevator shafts and trying to install that with people coming through the courthouse. Clearly, we need a sustainable place where we can run a justice system. And if it floods, where we don't have to evacuate everybody from offices, we need a building just for courts, and we need a building, I think, for our support public defender, DA, pretrial.
So how do you? This is, by the way, a record. This is the third time your third appearance on Reasonable Doubt, which you broke your previous record of 2 times. We've never had an elected district attorney on 3 times, and before this, we'd never had one on 2 times, except for you. But I don't forget I was going with that. But where is?
Well, I was a criminal defense lawyer for 10 years.
Oh, I know. But we had not, before you graciously came on, we had not ever had an elected district attorney come on Reasonable Doubt. But what do you do? That's what I was going to go with this. How do you affect the change? I asked you earlier when you said you train to have evidence-based.
Yeah.
Do you pick the person doing the training? Because you're not doing the training.
No.
And then how do you make sure that Mr. Leitner is running intake the way that you want, and that things are getting screened the right way? How does that come from the top down? Not having worked in that kind of office, I don't know.
So clearly the DA's job is not to ride herd on every single case.
Exactly.
There's no possible way I could know 100,000 cases a year, plus what's already pending. So I hired people, and really they were gracious enough to come work for me. Jim Leitner is held every position in the DA's office except DA. I trust him with my life. That's why he runs the front door. Mm-hmm. And things happen. You know, John Denholm said some things, and we caught a lot of criticism over that. I had hoped we could work it out. We couldn't, and he was terminated. I think things happen in a big office like ours, and what's important is to remain human and transparent, and if we make a mistake, say we made a mistake. I think we're doing so many things right. I don't like the constant I don't like antagonism between our bars. I really want us to fight like crazy for the interests of, us the people and you, your client, and then go have a beer in the evening. I like professionalism without acrimony, and I believe we can have it. But I don't want to pit it against each other. That's why when you ask me for my support for the defense bar, I've got firsthand knowledge of what, my partner was trying to live on, and it's just not enough money for the work that you all do. And likewise, our people have way too many cases. So when I asked for more lawyers, the criticism was, well, I wanted to send more people to the penitentiary. Well, that's not what my evidence shows. What I want you all to know is that we've decreased the number of people we send to the state jail by 58% since 2015, 58%. And we've decreased the number of people we send to the penitentiary by 25%. And I think we did that without damaging public safety. But I have to be concerned about the release of repeatedly violent people on PR bonds, low cash bonds.
Let's talk about the bond.
It scares me.
Let's talk about it. So, okay, a number of, you came in, Miss Ogg, the district attorney, the future, the hope, the reform. And then you file, or your office files an amicus brief. I don't necessarily want to say against.
It wasn't.
It was. I don't say against. I don't think it was against. But
I
said,
expressed
hold on.
concerns.
Okay, let's talk about those concerns and why.
Because of public safety, because of the way the rule 9.1, which I agreed to, was being implemented. Too many cases are pulled by folks to early present them. We see repeat offenders being released. I see domestic violence offenders not being magistrated, being released on EP, early presentment bonds, so there's no warnings, there's no MOEP, and there's no protection for the victim. And I got a domestic violence problem in Houston that's driving our homicide rate. So I'm connecting the dots, and what I'm suggesting is that bail is not to be a tool of oppression, but it is supposed to ensure that people don't go out if they're released and commit new offenses. And when that happens and they get PR bonds or low bonds again, the community does not understand, they do not like it. And for some time, people were saying the DA did it. The DA's releasing people on bail. Well, of course, bail is a judicial function. Right. But because I had stepped out and said I supported the misdemeanor bail bond lawsuit, there were lots of folks on the right who capitalized on that, and the police union president kept saying I was releasing everybody. And I was happy to do that. I don't believe that low-level offenders charged with minor crimes who can't pay a low bond should be kept in jail so we can force them to plead. That's unconstitutional. And I said that. And I said it at my own political peril when it wasn't popular and our bench was all Republican judges in the misdemeanor courts. But as they implemented it with Democratic judges, I became very concerned about the public safety implications. And right now we have 3 folks in jail for killing police officers. And there's many people who feel like the brazenness that is being caused by a lack of respect for a system that's not holding them accountable. I don't know if that's true. I'm not a social scientist, but I know I've never had 3 cop killers in jail at one time.
I don't know what caused that either. I just don't know that people think about, oh, I've got money back over in the courts, maybe I shouldn't do what I'm thinking about doing. That's what I'm not sure about. And that's why
deterrence is a very tough thing to measure.
Because most of the people sitting in the jail are presumptively innocent people.
Yes.
And I feel like our country should default to freedom. And if whenever someone's presented for early presentment, there should be a prosecutor in the room to say, Judge, before you let that person go, we need to put a protective order in place.
And that's not happening.
Why not?
Because the way the process is being implemented is that's the reason. I'm not here to criticize the judiciary. I'm not supposed to. We're supposed to live with the rulings one way or the other. But I would say that people really are concerned about their safety.
Let's go ahead. We're past the halfway mark. If we can, Mark, if we can put the number up and open it up to the public. I think we do have a phone on record here. And so, caller, are you there?
I'm here.
Hello. You got a question for Ms. Ogg or in the panel today?
I do. I have a question for DA Ogg regarding public corruption cases. I'm glad she's been talking about transparency, and along that line, how is your office handling public corruption investigations, such as, for example, Amir Skandari, who used to work at your office and was a big campaign donator to you, who you hired at your office, who had no prior criminal experience? What are you doing to ensure he has an evidence-based prosecution?
Thank you, caller. We're going to take your call off the air. So you've been in the news on this one?
Yep.
Okay. What says you?
So Mr. Skandari is somebody I met through politics and was a supporter. Large donor, okay, I guess. I think he's contributed about $17,000 over 3 years. I can't be for sure. Much of it in kind. And I hired him as a consultant simply to help me with my financial crimes division reach out to the business community, which he's part of. So when it was revealed that he might have committed a crime, that's certainly what was alleged by folks who ran the poker rooms, I have a conflict of interest. So I withdrew, and I asked the FBI and the U.S. Attorney's Office to take the case, and that's how I handled it. And they'll handle the business. Obviously, that question was from somebody who wanted me to talk about that subject. I'm not afraid to talk about that subject because I didn't do anything wrong.
I think the poker rooms was a big deal. Your name and your weight comes with, remember when you first ran, big backings, big money, big candidate, big wave coming in with the Dems. Now it's re-election. I don't think money-wise or political-wise there's much in the competition. I don't. However, I think Adia Jones is running a grassroots. It seems like kind of grassroots versus the incumbent, which is a big deal. Some of her ideas are, and it's similar as far as low-level misdemeanor offenses or low-level type offenses. We're not into putting people in prison and throwing away lives and souls. One of hers is eliminating marijuana cases, which, quite frankly, I think you've already done. Okay, I'm in the courthouse every day. I haven't seen a marijuana case in about a year or two.
I have two. If we could talk after the show.
There's still a very few of them are still going on.
Usually they're attached to a felony.
Something
else.
You
just don't have misdemeanor marijuana being filed by itself. If they commit it with felony, it's still being filed. But what I did was, when the hemp law came down, June 10th, we just told law enforcement, you're not in a position to test. We're not in a position to test. The labs aren't ready. So unless you want to pay for a private lab, I'm not going to take those cases now. But the statute doesn't run for 2 years, and that's why I encourage them, and that's why law enforcement leaders agreed to keep pushing the misdemeanor marijuana diversion program, because it works. You don't go to jail. They take the weed, they put the contraband in evidence, you get a sheet of paper that says go to a class, you go to a class. If you can't afford the $150 fee, then you go for free. And what the $150 fee does is it keeps the county from paying for anything, and people who have the money in effect end up paying for those who don't. But it's far cheaper than hiring a defense lawyer, so it works. So we really have no one in jail just for misdemeanor marijuana.
I haven't seen it in a while.
Oh, everybody in jail.
I saw a couple lingers, okay, and I was like, shit's supposed to be over. But I still had a couple, but for the most part, I think it's done.
I think you guys got to go to the legislature. Eventually, the legislature's going to quit holding their, crossing their fingers behind their back, and they're going to take action on marijuana, and they're going to make a lot of money in the state coffers.
Well, let's talk about
Colorado's going to set that example for Texas.
Let's talk about the sex cases, though. Adia Jones wants to not prosecute Johns or Janes. In other words, prostitution. The sex. So we can get, sex and marijuana effectively okay in Houston. What says you?
So sex workers are not criminals per se, but they are committing an act that's against the law. And so you have people who are generally, nobody wanted to be a prostitute. They are often dependent on their pimps and traffickers for addiction issues or for money or even love. I think the appropriate approach is the one we're taking through Project 180. They're arrested, so the businesses like around the Bisnet track get relief. At least we try to give them relief. But the girls are released on bond almost, well within 24 hours.
They're tough to come back, I'm telling you.
They do, but they get referred, many of them, at least 17 to 25-year-olds, get referred to the Houston Area Women's Center, where we try to provide them wraparound services. How do we treat the Johns? Through different pretrial diversion, deferred adjudication, and there are people who really want me to go hard on the sex buyers to kill the demand. I just don't know, like drugs, I don't know that prohibition is going to work. I'm not sure that regulation and decriminalization aren't the way to go. But until the legislature does that, I'm going to enforce the law because I really think that's my job. And you can see the DAs around the country who just made edicts, I'm not going to do this or that, and they don't include law enforcement. It just doesn't work. It's not sustainable. When I did marijuana, I did it with the partnership of all the agencies in town. I want you to think about the sales job. They agreed to let a habitual criminal who may have been convicted for really serious things in possession of up to 4 ounces of marijuana, they agreed to let him go.
Yeah.
That's not an easy sell.
How do you do that? I mean, do you have like Art Acevedo and
I did it
Gonzalez's
one by
phone
one.
number, and you just call them at night and you're like, come on, let's talk about
You
this
gotta
again.
FaceTime 'em, man.
I mean, honestly, like
We
I'm
work
really
together
curious how that works.
like a family. I call them up. They disagree sometimes. We agree sometimes, but we hash it out because I cannot bring change without law enforcement's participation. They don't all like it, but with leadership that works, they do it.
Well, that's the deal.
So, but that's you calling them up on the phone. You're talking directly.
I went to see them.
Okay, all right.
I went to
You
see
gave
them.
me your cell phone number the first time we had you on the show, and I still have it. I've never used it, but I just.
So that's you.
Hey, we got a caller. Hey, caller, how are you, man? How are you, a man or woman, person? You there?
Yeah, I'm fine. Ms. Ogg, I'd like to revisit the delay in the body cameras request.
Okay.
Under the Michael Morton Act, Article 3914, the defendant has a right to the discovery, and it's incumbent upon the state and the prosecutor to provide that as soon as is practicable. So I guess the question is it the policy and practice of the DA's office to instruct prosecutors not even to attempt this for a full 6 months? And wouldn't you say that if that is indeed the policy practice, that opens up the office to liability under 42 U.S.C. 1983?
Thank you, caller. We'll take the answer off the air. That's another body camera.
Yeah.
People are real upset, Miss Ogg, about the delay in body cams.
I'm real upset by the
people are
delay
real
in body
upset.
cams.
Let me
Just saying.
dovetail that question and this issue into the prostitution. So when I take a client, pitch the P180, and they come back to me, well, I didn't do that. I didn't do what they're saying. And I'm like, well,
Then
let's
you get
listen
a
to the
trial.
recording. And then I go, wait, I don't have a recording.
Right.
I don't have a body cam. And it's been 8 months. And I can't get them to agree to do the P180 until I can sit down and show them, well, you're saying you didn't say it, let's watch the video.
The rumor is that the prosecutors were directed to not hand over body cameras.
No, that's not true. What's happening is that there's such a backlog at HPD and some of the agencies that they've asked us not to ask and re-ask. And we have a discovery team, at least in felony court, who's asking. I'm trying to remove some of the support function to the support staff so that our lawyers can handle these growing caseloads that they're responsible for. So that is simply a function of some of the agencies telling us, man, don't even ask us for X period. And our lawyers trying to accommodate. What I think we need to do as a bar is talk to the funding entities as a bar, as a unified bar, the prosecutors and the defense, to not just ask, but demand funding that takes care of things that cause due process problems and that waste millions of dollars. The delay, the longer a case waits for disposition, the more times we take it to court. It's not just a waste for you, it's a waste for our organization, it's a waste for the taxpayers. It's terrible for the victims, the defendants. So we need funding. The police need funding. And I think the only way to do it is to collectively decide what we must have and then fight for it.
We got another call.
Well, I agree that the money is an issue and that can solve the problem. But I do think that the previous caller makes a good point, because I have had prosecutors, I've said, hey, I still need my videos on this. And they'll look it up and they'll say, oh, I made a request already. We got to wait 4 more months before I can escalate it. And I'm like, can you just send the request again? Like, no, I can't.
The first time I heard escalate was on the reset today. I'm sorry to interrupt.
No, that's okay. Does the caller have a point about
Yes.
legal obligations?
Yes.
3914?
Yes, caller. You do have a point, but it is as soon as practicable. And when we're making the request from the originating agency, we're necessarily dependent. You will get it, but the question is, how long will you wait? We'll get it. Remember, we're waiting too. It's not like we have access and y'all don't. So how can my lawyers make a well-informed decision about and exercise the judgment about what to offer when they can't get to the evidence either?
Right.
So I think it's just
Sure.
a technology and funding issue that can be overcome through good advocacy. And that's what I'm pitching. Listen, I've been standing up there alone for the last 3 years asking for funding. I'd be happy to have some company.
We've seen it. We've seen it.
I've gone to some of the CJCC
all right,
meetings in the Commissioner's Court.
That's why you're the DA, Miss Ogg. That's why you're the DA. Caller, who are we? What have we got?
I heard y'all earlier talking about, I heard Ms. Ogg talking about releases from jail without seeing a judge on family violence cases. And I wanted to ask, given that
It is.
the only time that somebody is released from jail without seeing a judge is because the prosecutor has delayed filing the charges in violation of SB 7. Or the O'Donnell decision. So every time someone's released without seeing a judge, it's the DA's fault. And so I was wondering what you're doing to fix it and what comments you have about it.
Well, Judge, we don't order the release of defendants. I think y'all do.
Well, okay. So this has been a thing. So who's dismissing the cases? Is it the judge's finding no probable cause? Or is it the district attorney's office filing the motion?
No, that's a different issue. I think the 1517 hearing was agreed that would be used for cases where public safety was an issue, domestic violence, DWI. And so when cases get taken out of order and a magistrate decides that it's really an EP case, then there is no 1517 hearing. They're not seeing all of our paperwork. And it's not our fault. If we could take blame out of this and just stick with the facts, I think people would understand the problem and the solution better and more easily. So it's a matter of sticking with the protocol that's been developed and being consistent about it. And I just see some inconsistencies in the way those cases are being handled, and they expose the public to danger.
Are more people, more prosecutors the answer in your opinion?
Yes. I am in position as the elected CEO, in effect, or managing partner of the biggest public law firm in town. I didn't come and ask for more prosecutors the first year. I really had to work through all of the data. There wasn't a lot of infrastructure in the office in terms of human resources, statistical data to rely upon. So it took a while to really understand the problem. But Harvey brought it into clear focus. We saw the first big increase in docket right after that. But as we've seen the new bail system be implemented, there's a big increase in the county courts in the number of cases pending on their dockets, and it's just going to require, I think, some work with the judiciary.
Do you agree that a big part of that is that people are not having to plead guilty to just go home?
No, I don't agree with that. I know, because I experienced the system just like y'all did for all those years, that when you keep people in jail and you do it for reasons that you want them to, plead. That's not constitutional. I don't agree with
Right.
that. And that's not what I want.
No, I'm not saying do you agree with that practice. I'm just
Okay.
saying do you agree that part of the reason why the county court dockets have increased is that the holdover cells are vacant, basically vacant.
No.
All runs out on bond now, and so they don't
Right.
have the incentive to plead guilty, and the case can last longer. JV and I can have more time to wait for body cams or wait for witness statements or whatever evidence or discovery we need. Do you think that is contributing in a large part, or to some
I don't. I really don't. Otherwise, I think we'd see a huge increase in the number of trials. But we don't see our courts going to trial that much. We just don't. We see a decrease in the number of trials, if anything, over the last several years. It really started in about 2016. There's a noticeable change in the number of cases that were being tried in the county and district courts, and the judges would have to explain why. So I see dockets where people just aren't showing up very regularly, a larger and larger number, and I think that's a contributing factor. I think the lack of courtrooms is a contributing factor. I think the discovery is a contributing factor. The delays in discovery are probably a big part of it.
I'll say the portal has changed. I carry this around court,
Yeah.
and like it is just changed the game. I think the portal's great. I still think it's cumbersome. I think it's just technology.
It is.
And just in general. The district clerk's website is still a little clumsy with the kiosk, but I think that the switch over was terrible. And I think people might have even left the office because of how difficult it was to switch over from paper to wireless, and they felt they were being stepped on or shamed on or whatever, and they had to leave. Ultimately, that growing pain, in my opinion, was completely worth it. Let me ask you something different, though. Can Adia Jones and Judge Jones, one be a district attorney and one be a judge? What do you think about that? I mean,
Oh, I'm not the chief ethics officer of the county or the state.
everybody wants to know.
I'm of course confident that we won't ever have to answer that question.
There you go. That's strong. That is strong. One of the things that I think also I have been good at is I do think that you've diversified the office a bit. Okay, I do. I do think that you have some. When you came in and did the Bloody Friday, or what is it called, Bloody Tuesday? That's what it's called. You know, when you came in and you took everybody out.
Only
Not
38.
everybody.
Only 38, but I think that what has grown are beautiful flowers. Are strong people who have risen to leadership positions, district court chiefs, division chiefs, who are not only good, we can go out and have a beer afterwards, and we can trust each other, but also when we get in the courtroom are tremendous advocates. And so I think a lot of some of the fears with every election is that there's going to be another sweep that comes in and everybody's going to get let go. But it'd be very difficult for me to believe that any of these individuals, because they're amazing advocates, would be let go. And I think I contribute that to you.
Thank you. Let me say, I am so grateful to the people who work with me. I really don't look at it as them working for me. We've talked about some of the great people that came, they left thriving practices, and they came to serve their community, I swear to you. Their motives, none of us really know each other's motives, but I see how hard we work at our age, how hard really good trial lawyers are working to administrate fairly. And they are serving you guys. In terms of our diversity, we got our stats back, and I'm so proud of them. We've increased Latino hiring by 125%. We've increased African American hiring by 91%. That's in our professional ranks. Our admin staff always had a good diverse mix, but that's support staff. Developing your professionals from the top and the bottom at the same time, I think is having a good impact on the office, and I think on our community. And I'm glad that you respect and promote them to me, because I tell the public all the time, these people are real public servants. So I don't want them to leave, and I'm looking for another term so that we can continue the work that we've started and we can have some continuity. The DA's office has not had it since Johnny Holmes left. Chuck was there ended his career in a,
Terrible fashion.
in a disgraceful way.
Sure.
Judge Likas was one term. Mike Anderson passed away. Devin was defeated in a term. And I believe that the office desperately needs, and that our justice system needs, the continuity of experienced lawyers with me reforming the system. It's got to work. So it's one thing to talk about reform, and it's another to do it. Operational soundness is everything. It's got to work. So that's why I'm running.
Well, go ahead. Last question, Justin.
Well, it's not a question. It's so much.
Our last statement.
I agree with what JV said, that the integrity in most of the assistant district attorneys that you have in your office is stellar. I have noticed, and especially in the last 6 months, I feel like there's a lot of the younger prosecutors who don't seem to show a lot of deference and respect to some of the benches. And even to some of the defense attorneys. I have trouble getting eye contact or someone to just look up at me when I'm trying to ask them for discovery. And that's one thing that I know the people at the top, yourself and other people that you've mentioned, they all carry themselves in such a professional and respectful way. I want to start seeing that trickle down to some of the other folks that I deal with on a day-to-day.
Our young people.
You got 30 seconds, Miss Ogg. You got 30 seconds.
Our
Bring it
young
home.
prosecutors coming from all over the country. They're coming from all over the world.
Right.
And they're really passionate, and they want to do good, but they have huge caseloads, they have uncomfortable work settings sometimes, and we don't get nearly enough contact at the top with the bottom. So I have to count also on the professionalism of the defense bar to encourage our lawyers along, to be civil, and to show through your actions the professionalism that we're preaching. We believe it, but it's hard when you're a kid with big debt and a low salary and 700 cases to sometimes look up. But I encourage them. I'm grateful. I want y'all to encourage them. These are our future lawyers, and I want to try and reduce the acrimony between some members of the bench and some members of the defense bar and some members of the prosecution. I really want us to fight like hell for our interest, and then see each other socially and be good brothers and sisters at night and care for each other.
And have you come on this show
For the fourth time. That's right. That's right. Thank you guys so much for having me.
Seriously.
Thank you.
The people in the studio today, Miss Kim Ogg, Harris County District Attorney, running for her second term. Good luck. Wish you the best.
Come back.
Come back.
Happy to.
Justin Harris, everybody watching, thank you so much. From the Harris County Criminal Lawyers Association, rock and roll.
Good night.